Ladies and gentlemen, I've made a lot of Magnus Carlsen content over my years as a YouTuber. Magnus, of course, being the best chess player right now, and arguably the greatest chess player of all time. I've made videos where he beats people in suffocating middle game style, brilliant endgame technique, fantastic different types of openings that he portrays. But in this video, he did something so heinous, so horrible, so despicable and disgusting that I'm dedicating an entire video to it. And I'm not talking about the recent chess drama, as some of you might think. Magnus Carlsen is playing in an online tournament right now known as the Mr. Dodgy Invitational. And yesterday he had to play a match, first to 6.5, a blitz match. And his opponent was none other than Salem Saleh from the UAE, the #1 player in the UAE, a top 50 grandmaster in the world, a very good player. And I'm not going to spoil anything else. We're just going to look at some of these games. Timestamps are on the video player. Here we go, okay? This is a blitz match. The very first game, Magnus begins with... Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, I never make my videos with sound, but I was recording something slightly different, so I had sound on. I don't like peace sounds. I think they're a little bit distracting. You may disagree. Let me know in the comments. Maybe I'll make a poll. Anyway... normal stuff from this first game, all right? Magnus not doing anything goofy, developing all his pieces. We have a very closed position, all right? All 8 pawns on the board for both sides. Bishop e6. In fact, it stays close for a while, but finally Salem gets going. Salem, his nick... Wait a minute. Wait. Did you guys notice it says Magus? No. Magnus Carlsen. There we go. Okay. All right. Magnus Carlsen. There we go. And by the way, I don't know what this is. These are the ratings that were reported. I think those are their like online ratings on, maybe it's Chess24. I don't know. Knight g3, queen d6, and Magnus starts expanding on the queen side. Salem responds with b5. From the first 15-20 moves, you think nothing. You think Gotham's not going to make a YouTube video about Magnus again. Surely not. Well, a4. That's all he needs. That's all he needs. Magnus senses that the queen side is mildly unstable. This pawn could be weak if there's a trade. That square is very nice. The rook is going to get into a6, right? So rook d6. And Magnus just very slowly keeps pointing the bishops at the queen side. All right, now he trades everything, and I told you the c5 square is weak, right? And then he trades the queens, and when the knight stops guarding the center, he now wins this pawn. And instead of going for this pawn, right, because Saleh here is trying to get, he's trying to get the 2 rooks, right? Now, if the knight wasn't attacking the rook, like let's say this was the position, this is a horrible situation for white. But that's what Saleh wanted. Knight g4, hits the rook, defends f2. The knight jumps back this way. I give away this pawn, but check this move out. Knight f1 forces a trade and forces black to be passive because the rook and the knight were both hanging. Rook e4, I picked this up. Let me tell you something right now. Magnus eats these positions for lunch, breakfast, dinner, 5 o'clock snack, midnight snack. Look at this. You cannot take that pawn on e3. I will take that pawn on c7. Listen, you could survive a 2-on-1. You ain't surviving a 2-on-0. And, well, unless you're, a team in the World Cup that came back from 2-0 down. Who's come back from 2-0 down? Somebody did. Well, actually, Korea did today against Ghana, but then Ghana won. And Magnus just, I mean, listen, if Magnus has a chance to convert a position in a rook endgame, he's going to do it. Like, there's something about it. I don't know what Magnus loves so much about converting rook endgames, but he's just so good at it. He's going to get his king to c6. Now, apparently he messed up here. Apparently Black had a drawing chance. And Magnus should have done things a little bit differently. But that's what, being the world champion is all about. You pose practical problems. You sacrifice your rook for the pawn. And then it would be c5 and c6 and c7. And the king cannot stop. King and rook cannot stop the 2 pawns here. So, first game goes to Magnus by virtue of a king and pawn endgame. Saleh resigned because, while this might look drawable to the untrained eye, it ain't. Queen here, and listen, they're good enough to win this endgame. Don't worry. Pawn actually has to be here for this to be a draw, because it's a bishop's pawn. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry. You can learn that in a different YouTube video. Okay, but that's game 1. I mean, this is hardly an annihilation. I mean, right? There's nothing. He's not Magus here, right? Okay, Magnus. Terrific. All right, game number 2. So this time we got a Queen's Gambit, declined, exchange variation, normal stuff, boring stuff. Let's just take a sip of our coffee here with a splash of milk in it. Magnus looked to trade the bishop. Saleh didn't want to. Knight d6. All right. And now Magnus attacks the center with the move c5. Now, if you're just looking at this, right, this is coming here, that's a free pawn, but it's not a good move. Because after this, queen is hanging, and I'm going to continue to bust open the center. And so, because of that, Saleh plays this move, queen f2. He moves his queen off the center line, plays bishop f4, and he's trying to, he's trying to, like, finagle over here, get the queen over there, and knight e2. Look at Magnus. I mean, look at Magnus. The squad rolling up. Every single pawn is advanced on that side of the board, and just when you think that Magnus is... He plays h5. Bro, 5 of his 7 pawns are in the center. Like... Only he can get away with this goofy type of stuff. Okay, he defends that. Here comes Saleh. Saleh loves to attack. Magnus, though, is going to use his momentum against him, pins the pawn to the queen, and then shuts the door. Now Saleh's not going to be able to open the king side, but he keeps trying, right? He's preparing. Look at this. He's building up on the G file, but into what? You know how much money Saleh would pay to get this pawn off the board? It'd be like a 20 gifted sub bomb or something to the Magnus Carlsen Twitch channel. And here Magnus is like, okay, Salem, it was really cute that you thought that you could attack me on the king side. So now we're going to forget that you ever tried to do that. And by the way, why is Magnus's horse just wandering around the farm here? Like, what is going on? Look, c4, b4, c3, b3. He sacked the pawn to clear the path. And then in this position, he plays... He could play d takes e4 because this is hanging, but then he has e takes f3, which is a fork actually, and the pawn's still gonna queen. But he sacrifices his knight, takes the rook on e1, rook on e4, and position is still pretty complicated, but this pawn is just too far. And Magnus gets the bishop to the light squares. And he wins Salem's queen. Now, Salem did not have to blunder that. Salem could have played knight c5 in this position, but that's just I don't know how you stop that. Let me tell you something right now. You ain't stopping that. Ain't stopping it. 2-0. Okay? 2-0. All right, game 3. Well, Salem's going to strike back, obviously. All right, this time, typical stuff. Similar to game number 1. Very similar. It looks incredibly similar. Wow. Dead similar, like the whole game. Like, oh, a4 this time. Okay, no b4. So last time Magnus went for some b4 stuff. Last time Magnus traded the dark squared bishop. So let's see what's going to happen this time. This time he keeps the pieces on the board. Right? His bishop's kind of passive, but slightly massive. Bishop e3, take. We cool. All right, it's going to be a bishopless game. 2 dudes, no bishops. Okay? There was the other version, which I can't name, but there's 2 dudes, no bishops. Queen d5, rook d2. And, I think in many ways, Magnus wants to stop Saleh from getting to his sweet spot. Saleh loves to attack. Like, he's a very good player when he's rolling downhill. So look what Magnus does. He just makes it very difficult here for Salem to attack. I mean, he's basically creating a middle/endgame where he's kind of paralyzing Saleh, knight d2, f5, and he's going into a queenless endgame. I mean, it's a 2-rook and knight endgame. That's what it is with 7 pawns. That's a threat, so Saleh sees that. Now f3. Now, you could, in this position, play take, and then take, and then take and b4, right? But, I mean, Magnus is just so funny. From this position, he trades the queens, and he's like, I'm the greatest player in the endgame of all time. Like, it's just so funny. Imagine you're just sitting there, and something like, you play, everybody got a playing style in chess. Oh, my opponent likes this and I like this. Magnus literally has the benefit of, I am the greatest endgame player who has ever lived. Ever. Human. Stockfish would clap him, but you know what I'm saying? It's all right. We all live to be clapped by someone else. Just in case your dating life has been a little bit stagnant recently. Just wise words to live by. So, in this position, Magnus trades the queens, and then he trades literally all the rest of the pieces, and he's like, I think I'm going to win this endgame because I have an outside pass pawn. Stockfish here ruins the parade by giving him a full pawn. This is one of the most disgusting defenses I've ever seen in an endgame. So, essentially what White is doing here is like, I have what's called an outside pass pawn. I'm going to go a5, we're gonna trade, and then after we trade, I'm gonna make a queen. The computer is like, that's adorable, b5, which is such a scumbag computer type of move. There are only 5 pawns left on the board after that point, and one of them barely counts because it's about to be taken, and the computer's like, yeah, this is a draw because you can't create a passed pawn. If anybody's winning here, it's black. What? Yeah, but Magnus is playing humans, he's not playing engines. And even though Select can get this far, now his knight is paralyzed, stuck defending the A-pawn, and Magnus just goes boop, and starts to advance. Now, there's no way Magnus is going to win this game. So this one's obviously going to end in a draw. I mean, he simply doesn't have enough material. The A-pawn's not going anywhere. King takes G2, D5, King F6, and Magnus is going to win this game, isn't he? Yep. Now, if you're confused what happened there, Magnus played knight d4, which is not a blunder of a knight. That's actually a deflection of the knight from the promotion. The only move here is this. And then knight takes f5 would happen. So what Salah had to do was keep his king on f6. So the move knight d4 would not be possible. But the incredible thing is, after king to g3, king f7, it's Zugzwang. You're going to play knight d4 anyway. So Magnus actually, miraculously, even using only 3 pawns, none of which can move forward. Okay? This is how good Magnus Carlsen is. Think about this for a second. He has 3 pawns and a knight remaining, and none of the pawns can move. None of them. They will all either be taken or are blockaded. But he finds a way to geometrically completely prevent his opponent from making a single move. That's called Zugzwang in chess. Any move that you make, you surrender something. And he wins. He deflects the knight from the pawn, and then he just... Okay, anyway, game 4. So in this game, we got more of... It's kind of funny. Like, sometimes in these matches, you get into these loops of openings, right? You're like, oh, I'm playing this guy. I got a decent position last time. So this time, Saleh's like, I'm going to push my A-pawn and prevent Magnus from getting anything on the queen side. Magnus is like, okay. Knight F6, G6, knight G7. You know what we call that back in Norway? A fiankettoed knight. Or, I don't know how you'd say that in Norwegian, but probably something like Knighten or something. I don't know. I cannot do a Norwegian accent, all right? Norwegians, y'all language sounds like a pirate ship. Like, I don't know what's going on over there, all right? A6, Magnus is like, okay, B5, come on. Yes, Select, listen, it looks like Magnus is white in this game, putting on this pressure. Bishop F5. I'm telling you, these dudes hate bishops. But in this position, the bishops had a staring contest. Like, when I say a staring contest... Like, I mean it. I mean, the bishops stared at each other the entire game, and pawns danced and weaved, and finally we had a trade. Okay, this is Salem's best game. He is actually doing well in this game. He's not just holding Magnus, he's actually straight up beating Magnus. Okay, knight b4, rook e6, Saleh, knight c5, rook d6. How does Magnus defend, right? The sign of being a good player, great player, is that you have to be good at defense, right? That's one of the things. You have to create chances where there are none. At some point, white needs to build up for this move, e4. He backs up this way, and then he plays rook c1. Magnus is just kind of playing pass-back moves. He's like, do something, right? So b4, okay? Rook e7, rook c3, rook d8, knight f4. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. He hesitated too long. Magnus understood what the demands of the position were. And by now having 4 pieces controlling the e4 square, not only is Salem not getting the e4 move in, that is going to fall. You know how that's going to fall? Very simply. Magnus is going to bring the queen back and play g5, and the knight is trapped. How did we get to minus 5.7 from +1? I mean, it was +1 in the middle game. It was literally +1 here, plus 1.5. And the game ends with g5, game is over. I mean, how does he do it? It's effortless. It's completely ridiculous. Nobody should have this ability. Nobody. And the point is, you guys might be watching like, the knight's not trapped, you idiot. You stupid. Yeah, then rook e3, all right? Then this is the equivalent of being hydraulic pressed on a chessboard. You guys like that channel? Welcome to the hydraulic press channel. Yeah, I mean... Or like, can it blend? Okay, this is the equivalent. I mean, this is awful. Like, Salem had his best position of the game, of the match, and Magnus took it away in 5 minutes. Magnus is like that parent, all right, that like sees their kid having too much fun for 5 minutes and not doing their homework, and they gotta go back to doing their homework. Like, they just, no, keep studying. You gotta keep getting better. 4-0. Oh, God. Okay. 5. Salem, you gotta strike back. All right. This time a Spanish. You guys notice? Other two Italian. This time Spanish. They sound like similar languages. They're sometimes sound like similar positions. Well, okay. I don't want to insult any Italians or folks who speak Spanish, but like to someone that doesn't speak the languages, they might sound similar. They got like slightly similar words every now and then. You guys gatekeep everything. I know you're gonna get mad about that. All right, relax. All right. Now, this one's a little bit different. This one is a main line of some sort. Not quite. It's like a main line setup by black, but not against the main line by white. White should have c3 and stuff, but white only has d3. And now knight bd2. And notice how in this game, Magnus does this completely goofy reroute. Like, look at the white bishop move. b5, a4, okay? b3. a2. B1, C2. See, when you play like this, you're an idiot, right? Like when I play like this, I'm an idiot. When Magnus plays like, yeah, so in the first 15 moves, Magnus has moved his bishop 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. What the? But like when he does it, it's like a very sophisticated rerouting technique. When you and I do it, it's like, why do we move the bishop 6 times in the first like 10 moves? It's ridiculous. And 7. Okay, now the bishop's gonna die, right? Yeah, it's gotta die. Yep, but he wins a pawn, for good measure. So he wins back the pawn with interest, and now the fact that the bishop move doesn't even matter. God, these guys hate bishops. Can I just, look at this. Bishop h6, bishop c1. These dudes just hate bishops. They cannot stand them. How many positions that we've had, no bishops? They just really like horses. They're into some goofy stuff. All right, queen d2. Okay, 1. Now, the reason that Magnus does not have a huge advantage is because his extra pawn is kind of right here. Like, good luck moving it forward, right? He's not going to be able to move it forward. He moved it forward, and he's voluntarily losing material for it, too. Look at this. Like, the whole point of his position is to prevent knight b3. Salem's entire strategy here is, all right, well, I'm controlling that, you know, so he's obviously not going to move b4 because he can't. Oh, you know why? So the reason why he can do this, Magnus, is because the relative value of this knight is not 3 points. It's 4 points. It's a 4-point knight. One of these rooks is not worth 5 either. Because if you play rook a7, you lose a rook. And if you play rook a8, it's actually even worse. Because I take, and that's mate. Like, that's just straight up checkmate. So white actually has a great position. And Salem does this. So Salem sends it to queen rook and 6, queen rook and 6. It's zeros. He cannot lose this game. Surely. Magnus sacks a pawn. Oh, God. Magnus sacks a pawn. His idea is to do something like this, and then to play rook h1, rook h5, and just mate Saleh. So Saleh's like, haha, you bastard. I don't know why he sounds like Peter Griffin. And look at this. Queen takes g4, rook a8. It's never too late to get mated. So Magnus now voluntarily walks his king directly in the open. My man Saleh sacks the rook. He just sacked the rook for a draw. That's it. Draw in the pocket. Draw secured. Here we go. Magnus is running. Gives away the rook. Takes on g6. Check. Check. Blocks. Oh my God. That's it. Saleh's got the draw in the bag. He cannot lose this. Shit. Here we go again. Oh no. No, Saleh. No. Oh my God. King c2. All right. King b3. Oh God. It's a race. Oh my goodness. No, surely not. Surely not. Magnus is not going to win this one, right? All right, both guys make queens. Okay, terrific. Now, here's the thing about these endgames. When you are at the pawns, it's very different. For instance, this is very bad for black. Black will lose this. So black has to do this in a way that you can win some of the pawns, but Magnus is going to make this so difficult. Oh no, queen on e6. Check. Check. Ay, he takes the pawn. King d5. Okay, it's still a draw. Okay, he lost the pawn. It's still a draw. It's got to be perpetual check. Is Magnus going to beat him on time here? Oh my gosh, no. Magnus, don't do it. No! He blunders into the block the check with a check. He was low on time, and Saleh Salah is down 5-0. No! Salem! Oh, we still cheering for him though. Salem, all right, you got this, brother. Come on. Salem, come on, we believe. All right, now this time Magnus going for a Sicilian. Magnus feeling feisty. Magnus like, oh yeah, it's 5-0. Now I'm gonna do a little Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman first fight. You know what I'm talking about? No, that didn't work out well for Anderson. Okay, G3, so sideline, right? Not playing D4. Magnus plays D5, and a very imbalanced game. Let me put it this way: when you're down 5-0 in a match, you do not care anymore, with white or with black. It does not matter if you have 0 or if you have 5. You're like, I'm down 5-0. I mean, there's nothing to care about anymore. I'm gonna do my best. Saleh's like, clearly not my day, so I'm gonna play solid. I'm gonna put a knight on D4. There we go. And so what black has here is an isolated pawn, right? Black has a D pawn that's isolated, and in a worse nightmare isolated pawn situation, you get something like this, where the pawn is completely blockaded, and you can bully the stuff around the pawn. So white will play queen here, here, take, create another weakness. But an isolated pawn is not so good for the side trying to target it when this can happen. Take, and rook c4. And suddenly, the other guy has an isolated pawn, and Magnus takes over the game here by just defending everything. He's like, all right, I got 5, you got 4. Listen, I've won games in this match. Down a pawn, up a pawn, equal pawns, d4, rook d8 holds it down. Just poking and prodding. Okay, g5, nice move. And there's b4. Look at all the dark squared pawns for black. Rook a1, here comes the king. All right, double up on the c file. Sometimes to win endgames, you want to trade one rook. You don't want to trade both. You want to trade just one, okay? So there he is. He trades just one rook. Now, he might trade both, but he's got to be guaranteed the bishop endgame is winning. So keep that in mind, okay? So he trades one rook, and now that's why you need the rook, because after this, taking on d4 at some point in the future, you can take on, there you go. Look at that anchor. Look at this. Separating the rook from the pawn, getting the pawn, and now the b pawn is going to become a major asset. He can also take on h2 when he's ready, but he doesn't even have to take on h2. The pawn just walks up, check, and in this position, Magnus, very cool, calm, and collected, makes the queen. Why does he make the queen? Because when all the dust settles, this king is out for a swim, and this king is about to break into this king's house and take some fancy stuff. So, I don't know what this guy's doing over here. That king should have been out here, all right? So in the endgame, you see even one square makes the difference? Look at this. See how one square just makes the difference? King f7, king c2. It's a draw now. I wonder, king g6 is still losing because here, but again, just one square makes all the difference. All the difference in the world, because the king will be able to go over here. So it's 6-0. And folks, I'm not gonna lie to you. If you thought that at any point in this video it was gonna get better, it didn't. You were lying to yourself, okay? You were lying to yourself to make yourself feel better. This looks like a carbon copy of game number 1. It's slightly different than game number 1 and game number 3, but it's 6-0, all right? And this time, Magnus just plays queen f3. I'm waiting for the trade of the bishops because you know these dudes don't like them. He secures the c5 square for his knight, and yeah, the bishops don't get traded in this game. Magnus just immediately takes advantage of the weak light squares, the weakening of the pieces. Salem plays e4. This is like last game syndrome. He's like, I just want to get out of here. Knight takes e3, rook takes e3, the knight is a goner on c6, and Magnus Carlsen takes 7 games out of 7 against Salem Saleh. I'm talking Spain, Costa Rica, okay? World Cup. I'm talking almost Germany, Brazil. Brazilians, I know you don't like that memory. By the way, you guys played spectacular in your opening match, all right? So all the best to the Brazilian team this time. You guys look great. I'm sorry that they treat Neymar like a punching bag. Not cool. But, yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous, guys. Salem is a top 50 grandmaster in the world, and Magnus Carlsen just beat him 7-0. That's all I have to say. I have nothing else. If you made it this far in the video, Cyber Monday sale, Black Friday sale, whatever you want to call it on Chessly ends by tonight. So make sure to check it out. That's all. Goodbye. I will see you in the next video. Get out of here.